Greetings. How's it going, guys? How's your fall doing? As a reminder, this is the Exclusive Career Coach podcast. My name's Lisa Edwards. I am the CEO of the Exclusive Career. This podcast is job search focused going forward. And what I am doing since I revived this podcast a few months ago is going back literally to episode number one and in order, taking out the ones that are, first of all, job search related, because I was covering a lot of things back then that not all job search, career management, all the things, and relevant to today. So some of the things may be job search, but specific to COVID or specific to something else that doesn't really apply in 2025 and beyond. And then in between all of that, as I have topics that I think are very relevant, timely, whatever, I'm going to be inserting them as well. So this is going to be an update of episode number 10 today. And we're going to be talking about preparing for a job search in 2026. So this one was a really fascinating look because it wasn't that anything that I said, for the most part, that I said back in 2017 is not applicable now. There's just more because of AI, because of technology. There are more nuances, and I want to cover those. As a reminder, my other podcast is where I'm doing all things career management. So things related to, working your way through the corporate ladder, leadership, executive presence, all of those kind of things. And last week in episode 29, I spoke with Brad Englert about the importance of building mutually beneficial internal and external relationships at work. So we really drilled down on, with the overarching umbrella of networking, specifically building those relationships that you need at work and with like vendors and customers, people outside of your company, but with whom you work on a regular basis in order to be able for both of you to do your job more effectively, more efficiently, and frankly, I think to have a better experience at work. So there's a lot of benefits to it. So be sure and give that a listen. All right. So back in 2017, when I did episode number 10, I focused on a site, thejobnetwork.com, and what it had to say about resumes, the role of personality in the interview process, how important a candidate's social media presence was, specific strategies around including metrics in your resume. And I am, by the way, doing a resume episode pretty soon. We'll talk about metrics. I also talked about the increasing use of the phone interview as a screening device, which is pretty much omnipresent now, although I should say not really the phone. It's mostly, sites like Zoom or Teams, that kind of thing. So as I said, none of that's gone away. It's what's been added, it's where the focus has shifted and that kind of thing. So I wanted to approach this topic from two perspectives. And one is strategies for those of you planning to start a job search in 2026. So that's where I'm going to start. And then I have some additional specific strategies for those of you who have been searching and plan to continue into the new year. Maybe you're not getting the results that you'd hope for. I'm going to be giving you a big picture view, then I'm going to be giving you a checklist, and then I'm going to be giving you 5 bottom line tips. So let's start with planning a job search in 2026. The big picture view, if you haven't job searched in a while, it is a very different landscape out there. One of the things I hear most frequently from clients coming to me is that they've never even had to do a job search before, that jobs have always come to them, the opportunities have always come, and they've just transitioned into those. That is seemingly happening less and less for whatever reason, but there are also other issues, right? So you're competing with AI agents who are out there applying on clients' behalf to hundreds of jobs a week. I you can imagine what I think about them if you know me at all and you've ever listened to this podcast. But what is happening is these people don't even know that they're being applied, that on behalf they're being applied to for these jobs. And of course, it is inundating the applicant pool and it's making it even more confusing. And as a result, employers increasingly are trying to figure out, okay, how can we circumvent this thing that is causing us so much grief, that is causing us to be inundated? You're also dealing with applicant tracking systems that may screen you out. And of course, they were here back in 2017 when I first did this episode, but they're much more sophisticated now. And I think we understand them a lot better. But the fact still remains that there are a couple of ways that ATSs work, but the bottom line is that there is whether the employer sees everyone's names or not, it's going to have a line. It's going to basically say these are the ones that meet your qualifications, or these are the top 10%, or whatever the criteria is that that particular system and the employer has asked for. And nobody's got the time to look at you if you're down in the bottom of this list. Nobody's just going to be for funsies. Let me go see everybody on this list. They're going to focus on the people that the ATS says, here are your top candidates. The next thing I want to say that I have said, if I could get up on the rooftop, and if I didn't live out in the country where there's not too many people to hear me, I would yell it from the rooftops. If all you are doing is looking at job boards, you are not job searching. You're just looking at job boards. There are so many people in this world that look at job boards on the regular who are not job searching, would not classify themselves as job seekers, but they're just curious. And if they see something, they'll apply. There has to be more to your job search than just applying online, which, as I've said before, you could train a monkey to do. And if all of that wasn't frustrating enough, companies are increasingly making candidates jump through a myriad of hoops, giving them projects to complete, giving them, assessments, testing, um, what we call serial interviews, where they have to interview with so many people. Let's see, I guess it was last year. I worked with a client who ended up getting a job back. In fact, I'm still working with her now that I think about it. She had worked for this company before, was working with another company now, and was applying for a very senior level role with that same company. So going back to that company, they put her through 8 rounds of interviews, and she was a known candidate. The most I've heard from anybody, I'm sure there's more, but I personally had a client who'd gone through 12 rounds of interviews. It's insane. All right, so here's your checklist. Here are the things. And for, I think, what should be obvious reasons, I'm not going to go into depth with each of these, and we'll talk a little bit, but I'll have episodes, if I haven't already, I think I have with all of these, talking in depth about them. So if you hear something here, and which is a good time to bring this up, if you hear something here and you're like, oh, I would like to hear a whole episode on that, my best recommendation is to go to my website, theexclusivecareer.com. And up at the top in the nav bar, you'll see podcasts. And when you click on that, it'll say new podcast and the exclusive career coach. This podcast is the exclusive career coach. It's the one with the more episodes. And when you click on that, there will be tiles. And the tiles will say things like interviewing, job search, resume, LinkedIn. And you can go to the appropriate tile and find a topic. And there'll be, the description will be right there that makes sense for you, that you might want to, listen to that whole episode, or even just read the notes from that episode. So that would be my best recommendation if you want more on any of these. So the first thing on the checklist is you want to make sure your resume is targeted, achievement rich, and in a format that can be read by the applicant tracking systems. Now, again, I'm not going to go into those individual pieces, but let me just break them down a little bit. Your resume is targeted. A one size fits all resume is actually a one size fits none resume. So if you need to have multiple resumes, you might, um, but you definitely don't want to try to make a resume fit into something. So if you're an HR person and that's what your resume has been written for, and you see this job for chief of staff, it's not going to fit. And you're going to have to do too much heavy lifting to try to make that resume fit that. Achievement rich. Metrics, metrics, metrics. Don't tell them you improved something. Tell them by how much. And don't just tell them what your job duties were. Tell them how well you perform the job and how you improve the company. And in a format that can be read by the ATS. Again, done lots on that. And also there's a lot of information out there. Next, update your LinkedIn profile. And this cannot be, or should not be, a cut and paste of your resume. It should be written in first person, in a conversational style. So as if you were saying what is in your LinkedIn profile, especially that about section, as if you were saying it to somebody over a networking lunch, right? It's just very conversational, tell your story. But LinkedIn is where the recruiters are finding you when you haven't applied for a job, but they're finding you if and when your profile accurately reflects what level of job, job kind of job, industry, skill sets that you have. And so they can find you when they do a search. And the beautiful thing about that is they come to you with an appropriate job, and you haven't had to do really anything other than update your LinkedIn profile. Next, identify your 4 to 5 employer non-negotiables and then begin researching companies that provide all of your non-negotiables. If you've said these are the 5 things I must have in a company, 5 things the company must do, be, sell, offer, whatever, locate, be location wise, and you only can find, if the company only has 4 of those, if you've said those are all non-negotiables, then those are your non-negotiables, and having any less than all of them means that is not an ideal employer for you. Again, that's something I specifically work very closely with my clients on because we want you having conversations with people about your fit with the organization completely apart from them having a job posted. Much better when they don't, because there's no competition when they don't have a job posted. Next, you want to determine a strategy for making contact with people inside those organizations. So, target employers, figure out who do I know that works there? Who do I know that knows the decision maker? I'm looking at all of this on LinkedIn. Who do I know that used to work there? Who do I know that knows a lot of people in my industry, my job function, and might be able to hook me up? Then you want to get busy making those connections so that you can ultimately have a face-to-face, either through technology or in person, conversation with the decision maker, meaning the person or a person who could be in a position to hire you within that company. Next, develop a multi-pronged job search strategy with specific action steps for each strategy. This is something I do with virtually every client. We do it in one session. Now, to be clear, I don't teach them how to do the individual pieces. That's what their additional coaching sessions are for. But we map out a job search strategy. We actually have a document. And the goal at the end of that is they can go to their calendar, they can calendar that in. I'm going to talk about that as my next bullet point. But you have a plan because, as I said, if all you're doing is looking at job boards, you're not job searching. So you want to make sure you have a plan in place and you are making it happen. And then finally, schedule your job search time and include your deliverables on your calendar. So you block off time, LinkedIn networking, for example, and then you're going to have certain steps that you're going to do that you've decided ahead of time that you're going to do during that block of time. And as you do them, you're going to mark them off. And then you're going to reward yourself for having completed them because you have control over those. You don't have control over how many interviews you get or how many job offers you get. Stay within and measure what you have control over. And then you want to set up the next block of time at the end of that block of time so that you have your next set of marching orders. And in terms of time, my recommendation is if you're working full time, 5 hours a week on your job search. If you are unemployed, 30 hours a week on your job search. And for some of you, there may be something between there because you're working part time or you have significant family obligations. I have at least one client who is going back to school. So we've adjusted her hours of job search because she's working on a master's degree. Next are my 5 bottom line tips. So these, again, specifically for those of you starting a job search in 2026. But what you're going to hear me say shortly is that everything I've just said is going to apply to those of you who will be continuing a job search in 2026. But I also have some additional bullet points for you guys. All right, first bottom line tip. When applying to positions posted on LinkedIn or other aggregate boards, so we're talking ZipRecruiter, Indeed, Monster, go directly to the company website or the organization website, whatever it is, whenever possible. So unless it doesn't say who the company is, I want you to actually apply on the company website. I did a podcast about this, I don't know, sometime maybe this year, maybe last year, I don't remember the number, but I actually did some pretty deep research and it was very clear that you have a better shot if you apply at the company website rather than via LinkedIn. Use all the intel you can, particularly if you have a premium account on LinkedIn. You can see a lot of information about how you match up with the other applicants, what things it looks like you don't have, and you can use that information, but then apply on the company site. The next one is use the plus one approach. And this is my turn. But this is when you apply online on a job board, like everybody else, like the thundering hordes, do one more thing in addition to just applying online like everybody else. It's a good way to get the people's attention. Is there someone who can pick up the phone and advocate for you? Send an email and advocate for you. Make an introduction. Is there a name of a recruiter there that you can reach out to directly? How can you leverage your existing network and anything that you know about the company or about the decision maker to get that little bit closer of a notice than you otherwise would? Next, networking truly is the name of the game, but there's an art and a science to it. And you want to learn how to network effectively with an equal amount of give and take. I call it an equal exchange of energy. If you are known as someone who only comes around when you're looking for a job, gimme, 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 and then you don't talk to these people again for the next 5 years, you are going to develop a not great reputation as a networker, and the doors won't be open for you. People will not want to talk to you. So you want to learn how to do this in a way that provides value as well as getting value from other people and doing it not in a transactional way, but in a relationship building way. Next, and I talked about this a moment ago, set up that structure for your job search. Block off times on your calendar, set up your deliverables for the calendar within that block of time, and then that's your measure of success. You mark off everything in that schedule that I want you to reward yourself in some meaningful way. And then finally, I want you to manage your mind throughout the job search. The rejections and the crickets that you are going to hear will mean what you make them mean in the absence of any information. So if some employer reaches out to you, email, calls you, whatever, and says, you were the worst candidate we've ever seen. Go away. Do not, never come back again. Nobody gets that, right? So chances are you don't get any information at all. That's scenario number one. What are you going to make that mean? It's up to you. Is what you're thinking about yourself, about your candidacy, about the job market, is that serving you in that moment or not? And the other thing is you might get some feedback. So you can take that as an indictment on your ability to get a job, or you can take it as constructive criticism, feedback, and act accordingly. So you get to decide what you want to think in that moment. And I want you to really work on practicing something when you get those rejections or those crickets. So let's just say if you decide to think an even better job is coming along for me, I'm so excited. I like that one. Next, here we have the folks who are continuing your job search into 2026. So as I said, everything still applies to you. What we have also, I suspect, is some frustration, some disappointment. Maybe you've slacked off a little bit because you're like, what's the point? Blah, blah. So I'm going to give you 5 additional bottom line tips for you guys. Number one, the past is the past. So no matter how frustrating or disappointing this has been so far, you have the option to start the slate, just erase it, start the race again, fresh in 2026, wipe the slate clean. Your past does not define your future unless you allow it to. Next, if you did not have a multi-pronged job search strategy with specific action steps, you need one ASAP. And that is something I could absolutely help you with through coaching. That is really a non-negotiable. What I see for most people is they either, as I said, spend all their time on job boards and get nowhere fast, or they try a little networking and they try a little this and a little that, but they don't know really what they're doing. They don't know if these are the best strategies for them. And so they're just kind of sticking their toe in and hoping it doesn't scald them or freeze them, whatever. Come to me and let's get you a plan that makes sense for you and specific deliverables that you will then be able to act upon. You'll have that structure. All right, that's the next one. Next, Watch your words and your thoughts. As I said just a moment ago, they matter. So be careful not only of what you're making things mean, when you get a rejection or crickets, but be aware of what's coming out of your mouth or what you are thinking, just even if it's just to yourself, right? If you say things like, I don't know how to network, that does not serve you. I have a lot of clients who come to me, and of course, they're coming to me because they need help. But they'll say, I'm a terrible networker. I don't know how to network. I don't know how to interview. I bombed this interview. And the fact of the matter is, we don't have proof of that. Nobody told them that. They just assume that. And a lot of times that happens with the job search. They don't get an offer after an interview and they assume it's because they bombed the interview, have no proof. What I want you to do is not act like Pollyanna and things are great and fabulous and perfect, but rather instead of saying I don't know how to network, I'm a terrible networker, I'm learning how to network. Is that's much better than I don't know how or that I'm terrible at it. Your words matter, pay attention. Next one. Tell yourself the truth. Rather than believing that the job market sucks, what are you actually doing to land your next job? If your networking efforts are unsuccessful, what can you do to move the needle, improve your networking skills, your networking strategy? What I'm saying here is there's no benefit in beating yourself up when things aren't working, when you're not getting the job offers, you're not getting the interviews, but rather tell yourself the truth about, okay, I really didn't prepare for that interview. Not as a way to beat yourself up, but as a way to improve, right? If you think about a boss coming to you and giving you performance feedback, wouldn't you much rather they say, it was because of how you prepared for that presentation. Tell me about that because I got the sense that maybe you weren't fully prepared. Now we are working to improve your presentation. We are not tearing you down. That boss is not coming in to say you're a terrible employee because you didn't do well in that presentation. But yet we do that to ourselves often. So be careful of what you are telling yourself and take control, improve yourself, but you're not going to improve yourself by beating yourself up. Next and final. Go after companies that are in perfect alignment with what you're looking for. Remember, I talked about those 4 out of 5 or 4 out of 4 or 5 out of 5 non-negotiables. And it has to begin with defining your non-negotiables. What is most important to me? Is it a certain, I want to make a certain kind of product. I don't want to make this kind of product. I want to work at a company in this geographic region. I'm looking for a company that is in this size or has this revenue. um, I want to work for a private company or a public company. I want to work for a nonprofit. Know what you're looking for. And why this is so important is that 70 to 80% of all jobs, as I said on a recent episode, are obtained through that hidden or unadvertised job market. When you get your foot in the door with companies that haven't posted a position, you get to have those one-on-one conversations about your fit with the organization rather than your fit against all those candidates or your fit against a laundry list of qualifications. And keep in mind that if you're not accessing that hidden job market, you're missing something along the lines of 4 out of 5 of every job's 4 out of 5 of every job that is posted or that is available, because 4 out of 5 of them aren't posted. So I hope this has given you something to think about and some steps. I'm going to go over those, your checklist again, real quick. Resume, targeted, achievement rich, and a format that can be read by the ATS. Update your LinkedIn profile. Identify your non-negotiables. 4 to 5 of them is probably all you want to go for, because other than that, your list is going to be improbable to, find a company that has 20 things that you're looking for. Determine a strategy for making contact within those non-negotiable target employers. And by the way, I recommend that you have about 20 target employers on your list. Develop a multi-pronged job search strategy with specific action steps. Schedule your job search time, have structure around it, and make sure that you are rewarding yourself for meeting your deliverables, the things that you have control over those over. So I hope that's been helpful, and I'll see you next week on the exclusive career. As a reminder, the last episode on the exclusive career is on building mutually beneficial internal and external relationships at work. And in 2 weeks, I'll see you back here. Take care.